decision was start the orchids, have lunch. Guess what won? I can't work on an empty stomach, and this is got to be done. Got to be done. Nice warm bread. Fresh warm bread. We like that. Not made by me, so don't ask. It was got yesterday so that I could have a bacon roll. I just had one of those sudden urges to have a bacon roll, and there was too much roll and too much bacon for one go. So we've got one again today. So I thought we'd have lunch first. Whoops. I'll be back. Right, that's lunch done. Full up to here now. Right, I've got the giant chunky bark, which will be from the bottom of the pots up to about 2/3 ish, and then I've got some of the Burnham's bark, and what I've done is I've sorted out some of the larger, firmer pieces of the cocoa husk. Now I wouldn't normally have a moisture retentive media for Cattleyas in Holey clay pots, but you have to bear in mind these are going in a very poor state as far as roots are concerned. Well, most of them are. The Lady Anceps is probably okay, and it would be handy to have a little bit of moisture around the top of the pot. And even though the Holey clay pots have got those holes down the sides, they still dry off fastest at the top, and it's at the top where I want to hold the moisture for a while. So near the top of the pot is going to get some smaller bark mixed in and a few chunks of this just to hold a bit of moisture around the base of the plant. And if such times come that the roots have then taken off and done their thing, this top layer can always be just teased off and replaced with chunkier stuff. But I still need something in between. It goes from silly big to small, and I haven't got that in between gauge. Now when I was at Burnham's last, they had some, but like I said, it was in polythene bags full of condensation, so there was a lot of moisture in those bags. Now, what is it now? What's the date now? The 6th. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to be out voting today. Does it look like I'm voting? No. Just encourages them if you vote. But yeah, so on the 17th, Burnham's will be able to open up properly, in as much as the cafeteria, the Cafe Vanilla, will be able to open and function, and some of the restrictions, although there aren't many restrictions at Burnham's for individuals. I mean, if I go there I need to wear a mask, but that's it, you know, and take my pointed stick with me for people I don't know. But yeah, so come the 17th, not long after that, at some point after that, I will go to Burnham's again with the specific task of actually getting a bag of that medium bark, and I'll bring it home and spread it out in the sunshine and dry it as fast as I possibly can. Then I'll bring it in and put it on the radiators to thoroughly dry it right through. Once it's thoroughly dried right through, I shall rely on it being okay from that point on. If such a time, having used it and started wetting it again, I start to see bits of mould, then I'll just treat it with a fungicide. and deal with it. But I need that grade of bark. I'm not going to go around with the scissors cutting this in half. Not that you could. This just as well be stone, it's so hard. And from that point of view, it's good stuff. Right, so that's the 3 types of media. I got my wire. I clean the pots off best I can. They're not spotless, but they'll do. And I've got my pliers and my wire cutters. And there's one thing missing. We could do with some plants, couldn't we? We're not going to get far without the plants. Now what I did yesterday was I actually packed them up. Once I cleaned them all off, done the hydrogen peroxide, all that I needed to do to them and rinse them off and everything, I just took them back out on into the grow room and led them on a shelf. And I will now go and get them and bring them out, and they'll be ready to go. They'll be dry now, otherwise they'd have been potted up wet. Right, rare occurrence. This is the 3rd attempt at starting this. The first attempt I got it all set up like that and I hadn't put the wire in. The second attempt I got about 2 sentences in and did an absolute massive sneeze and had to stop and blow my nose. Take 3. You don't normally get that with me. But anyway, with this pot, it's got a massive hole in the bottom, big enough for some of these big bits to actually fall through. So I've found a long piece to put across the hole. Now we should be okay. Right, next thing, wire. It's no good trying to do that afterwards. And looking at the rhizome on this, I'm pretty confident I can get that to stay still with 1 piece of wire. So I'm only going to put 1 on. I don't need a massive amount. Hasn't got far to go. There's a nice hole there, ready to go. So we'll start there. And that's as far as we'll go. Yeah. So it's waiting to be used. But I haven't got to knock the plant about. All I've got to do is when the plant's in position, just get that to come across. So plant next. And new roots will come from here, swelling already. They haven't started yet, but they will soon. These roots are papery, they're not very good, but there's probably enough life left in them to just about hydrate the plant. Otherwise it will live off its resources, which is not the end of the world, but it'd be better if it had some help from the roots. And this bark is so large, you can thread it in between the roots individually, like 1 piece at a time. You can actually pick up the piece and put it where you want it. It's so big. And that's what I'm going to do to make sure I haven't got any huge holes. And that the lower area of roots have actually got some contact. In the main, right. Not enough there. What I'm doing is I'm gently pushing down on the plant, and if it gives and goes down, then I haven't got enough bark there, because obviously when I pull it with the wire, I don't want it to sink right down in the pot. I want it to stay roughly where it is. So I need enough bark in there for it to be pulled down onto and not sink. So hopefully that, yeah, that seems quite firm now. Now I want to go behind that piece and in front of there. That's the bit of the rhizome I want to grab hold of, because it's nothing to do with the new shoot, and that'll be more than enough to hold that still. So we'll come out through there, and you need to make sure, if you're going to wire a plant in place, that the holes are lower than the part of the plant you're trying to pull down. Otherwise it won't work. You'll pull on nothing. You'll pull on air basically. Now what I do is I kink it up like that, yeah? And that's not going to hold that plant. It's not tight enough. So it needs to be tighter. So what I do is I grab hold of it with the pliers and lever it like that. Go steady, you can crack your pot. And then when I'm happy that the plant is firm, it's determined to fall that way. It's just, that seems better. then just kink it and it can't go back through the hole. It's determined to fall, isn't it? It's going to have a big piece of bark underneath it to stop it falling, like that. Now stay where you're put. Right, so it's holding it secure, it's just capable of rolling. Now a second piece would stop that happening, but I don't need it. There's not enough plant there to warrant a second piece. It's not. What I'm doing now is I'm just positioning some of this big stuff next to the holes, because when I put the smaller stuff on, it's going to go straight out through the holes, isn't it? Right, sort the wire out first. Get that out of my face. Don't want pointy bits sticking in the air when you start leaning towards your plants. You lose an eye like that. Right, now what I'm going to do is mix some small stuff, don't need a lot, with a few bits of cocoa husk. Only a few bits, it's just to add a little bit of moisture. And then this is going to go round the top. And because it's smaller, it will help the top of the pot stay moist longer and encourage those roots out. But I don't want to cover the rhizome. So we've got some smaller bits sort of right near the front of that new growth, which is where the roots will come out. And as I said, you know, you can always tip this upside down at a later date once the roots have got established and the small stuff will come out. Some of the loose big stuff might come out as well, but you can just poke that back in. You know, if the roots haven't grabbed hold of it yet, then it's arrangeable. Right, so that's that one, and I am going to try get out and twist it. By bending the wire with my thumb. Ah! It still won't stay upright. I'm going to put a stake in there. I won't do it now because I'll have to go and get one, but I'm just going to put a stake down there to hold that upright. The reason I didn't like it before was it was straggly and it's leaning over, so I will get that back upright again, and we won't put it on the cooker where it's hot. Right, that's that one done. Now we have to think about what we're going to do next. I'd like to do the apple blossom next. I just hope that is the two pieces. Not sure it is actually. That's definitely one of them because it's still got the blooms on. And this has already got lots of new roots and a new growth. So this piece is going to take off reasonably well, I think. But there's another piece that goes with it that I've misplaced. Now it's not that because that's too big. That's it. There we go. Because I want them both in the same pot. There's no point in doing these as two separate plants. They just as well stay together. I've got one new root on this piece at the moment. One's better than none. More will come. That's the latest growth on here. Came out the side. Yeah. So those two have got to go in one pot. So this will be a bigger pot. Of that size pot. Right, start with the big bits so that I don't forget them. And then we'll get some wire sorted out. Now I know I'm going to need at least two pieces of wire this time because I've got two plants. So we will get a couple on the go. If I have to add a third one, so be it. We'll start off with a couple of pieces. There's actually three of these holes near the rim, the little holes. So I could get three pieces on the go straight away. In fact, I think I will, because this is quite a large, tall plant. So we'll get that third piece in there. It's probably going to get used. So as I said, if you leave bits of wire sticking up in the air like this while you're moving plants around, take care or you'll have your eye out. Trust me. I had well, it's gone now because it's it was donkeys years ago, but I had a problem with that in as much as I put a scar across the corner of my eye. It was that close to my eye. It actually made it bleed and left a little scar. But it's disappeared now. Now this plant, when it's in there, is going to get tied together like that. And quite honestly, it would be better done now. Yeah, I'm going to go and get some raffia and tie that so that I'm planting it like that as an upright plant. I'll be back. Now we need to find out where are you going to grow. You're going to grow there, right? So all of that needs to go over on the side of the pot. And at the moment the bark's not deep enough. The plant will sit too low and then there won't be enough media underneath it. So we want that about like that. Where's the other one going to go? That one is going to grow. That's the latest growth. So there's no sign of a new growth yet, but that's where it's going to come from. That's where the new roots have already started. So we'll point that in towards the middle of the pot as well. So get some bark underneath it. This is to get it to sit at the right height, this big stuff. That's what the roots will go down and grab hold of. How are we doing? There's a bundle of leaves. Do a bit more big stuff around this side, otherwise I'll have too much small stuff. You see what I mean? If the big stuff doesn't come up quite near to the top of the pot and it fills up with small stuff, it'll stay wet too long come the winter time. You know, when all these new roots have done a massive bit of growth, he says, with everything crossed, you know, then it could possibly stay too wet, but it's unlikely. So that's about right, height-wise. That smaller piece needs to come up a little bit. Just lift it and give it a shake. Something will fall down underneath it. Now we've got to hold it in place. New growth right in the middle of the pot there. And I certainly don't want that wire anywhere near that new growth. So you're going to go in through there. This is going to hold the back end of the plant. Once I can find somewhere for the wire to come out of, which is probably about there. This piece of wire is probably going to hold this largest piece without any help other than this, just because of where it happens to go. So again, grab hold of it and lever it. Don't go too mad or you will crack your pot. And that has got that. Lovely. So we only need that one piece for the largest part of the plant. Let's get that piece out of the way. You've done. Now what about the other piece? How are we going to hold that then? I think I need, if I take that piece round through there, that'll be the front part of the plant. I'll find somewhere to come out. Down there. There we go, that's that piece. Do I need the second piece? Yes. Come on, don't poke holes in me flowers. I'm taking a risk leaving the flowers on there, but they're alright. You know, they might get a bit knocked about. They certainly, I doubt if they'll last as long as they would have done without knocking the plant about like this, but you know, if I've knocked a week off of them and I get 5 instead of 6, it's not the end of the world, is it? They'll come again. That's the whole idea of saving the plant, is that they will come again. Lose the plant, they won't. Right, so this piece of wire pulls there. at the other end of the plant and pulls it back that way, like that. Didn't need to use the pliers to lever that because I had a good grip and it pulled down firm without any extra help. Right, so the plant's nice and firm. We've still got our blooms, which is a miracle. Now we'll top the pot up with the same idea as before. The smaller stuff to just go down around the rhizome, and a few bits of the old chunky cocoa husk just to help keep a bit of moisture. And whenever you're doing this, try not to bury the rhizome. You can go a third of the way up the rhizome relatively safely as long as your pot doesn't stay wet, but I certainly wouldn't go any higher than that. I mean, I've seen people pot Cattleyas where you can't even see the rhizome when they finish. It's been completely buried. You're taking a risk. It's highly liable to rot because after the disturbance, the chances are its roots aren't actively growing. It's not a busy plant. It's a stalled plant in effect. So it's better if it's not subject to too much moisture, just enough to encourage those roots. Right, so that's the apple blossom done. Now get on and grow. I have no worries about this one growing, so I've just seen a deep bit where the rhizome's gone down a bit, the back end of the plant. And that's the worst bit to bury, because that's the bit that hasn't got any roots and probably never will have. I'm just going to hook that bit out, just in that area. It's where that second wire went on and pulled the back of the plant down. That's better, now I can see it. So that's that one done. Right, now I said this is going to be repetition. What isn't repetition, because now everything else is the same except for one, and that's this one. Because this one has already grown its roots and they're already a bit too long to be potting it up. They are highly liable to snap. Look at them wrong and they'll snap. So this one, you know, I've got my new growth, I've already got my roots. It's not a matter of waiting for them to start. They've been already allowed to go too long, and that was me deciding whether I was actually going to repot it or not. And that got a bit out of hand, that one. And its partner is over here, the other piece. And again, we've got some roots that have started. This one hasn't quite got as far as the other one because some of these went down inside the pot and have been slightly damaged. But we've got our new growth, probably a second one. And here we've got new growth tucked down in there, and highly likely another one's going to push there. I don't want to pick around there too much, but I'm pretty sure there's one there. Yes, there is. There's another one that's probably going to push there. Now, trying to get both of these in the same pot, it's going to be very difficult. I'm not even sure it's worth trying. It would go in one pot, like that. Yep. If it will, then it will. Does that make sense? Oh. Right. Big stuff in the bottom. Sorry, just rinse my hands. They're dusty. And dusty hands, you've only got to get an itchy eye and decide to rub it, and then you've just rubbed bark dust in your eye. Right, so I am going to get both of those in one pot, but I'm going to have to try and get those in sideways on and just gently push them round. They'll probably click and snap. I mean, that one's already got a crack in it. Others may follow, but that's all I can do. They're going to have to go in there by hook or by crook. So wires, let's It's going to take, I'll probably put all 3 wires in again for this because it's 2 plants. In fact, most of them are 2 plants, aren't they? It's just how it went, you know. Oops, not enough. Whoops, too much. I'm wasting it, isn't it? Alright, next. I always wish these pots had 4 of these little holes at the top, but they're geared up to putting your wires on to hanging the pots up rather than tying the plants in, which I doubt if that was even thought of when the pots were made. So the idea is that you can hang your plants up with 3 wires, and if you're hanging a plant, 3 is always better than 4 because it's liable to be lopsided, and then if there's 3 you only need to adjust 1. It's a triangle sort of thing. Right, there we go. 3 bits of wire. Now let's get these 2 at the same height, so you need to come up a bit. There's my new bit, that's sticking out. Got 1 new bit there, and the other one's there, and there, possibly there, and possibly there. So they're all in a cluster. I'm just going to try and twist that and get those aerial roots down the side gently. Well, they've gone in there. You just got to be as careful as you can. See, I mean, that one's already got a break in it, but it's already got a branch, so the branch will grow. That one's got a break in it, but you know, again, it could branch. Now we have a serious problem trying to get that big bark down in those holes. Well, we just have to do some gentle wiggling so that we can fill up most of these gaps. We won't get them all, I'm sure, but you know, I've always said air gaps with Cattleya types is not a problem. They'll often grow towards those gaps anyway. Defy logic. But if you can see a gap and you can push a piece of bark into it, then it's worth doing it. Right, now we come round here a bit and have a go at this bit. Great big gap down the middle there, which I do want filled up. It is even possible to select the piece of bark you want to go into the size of the hole when you're dealing with big chunky stuff like this. Oh well, we've got our first root coming out the side of the pot. No point in trying to bend that back in. That would be its end if you tried to do that. This is the dodgy bit. Just have to push some pieces down the side. Just pushing the roots sort of in towards the middle, and just tuck a few bits in the gaps that I can see. That's not bad. That's not bad, and a lot of the smaller stuff will fill in the gaps. So there's still some quite big gaps here, we'll have those done with big bits. Alright. God, there's a great big bit there, great big hole. Get a bus in there. Right, I think that's about it. Just hope the new growths are still there and haven't been knocked off. And the worst thing you can do is get it all just right, just how you like, and then push the wire through and take your new growth off. That usually involves some language if you do that. It certainly would if it was me. I'm just working out where to go. This back end needs holding, and it's worth using a single wire to do that, just to hold that piece well in place. Because with the back end held as good as that, and new roots around the front that will catch a hold reasonably quick, there isn't much else to do. There isn't much else work needed on this piece, apart from just that back end, like that. Gotcha. Right, oof, that's one. But that probably is all that piece will need. That's the smaller of the two pieces. There we go. Right. Now where we're going to go? Watch these new growths. See, that's the one. That's the sort of thing you've got to watch. That's so easy to knock off. I think I'm going to go around there and around there. So I'm now going across the front end of the other piece, right next to both new growths. Risky or what? So we don't take our eyes off it. We watch the wire, we don't take our eyes off, and ease it down into place. It's probably going to break that root and that one. So be it. But it's avoided the two new growths, which is the important bit. Now this one I will have to use the levering mechanism because I haven't got enough to grab hold of. See the plant go down? Good, nice and tight. Ooh. How many is that we've done? That's two we've done, haven't we? We've still got another wire here. Do you know, I don't need that. I'm going to take that out and save that for the next one. There's no point using it just because it's there. It's just, it would do nothing. This plant is perfectly firm as it is with just the two. So we'll save that for the next pot. Right, there we go. As I said, this one is a bit different because it already had a pretty extensive root system. So it needed a bit of a different approach to it. But nonetheless, it's still going to get potted the same, because I still don't want the top of the pot drying out. So we will still put some small stuff around the top, just where the base of the roots are. Keep them hydrated, near the plant. Great big hole there. Again, only up as far as the rhizome. And don't forget, this is the back of the plant here, but it has got roots. So, you know, unlike before, there was no point in having media near the back of the plant. This time there is, because there are roots there. And the more roots you get to hydrate when you water it, the more we'll get to the plant. Right, you can see one little hole down there. And that'll do. Pleased with that. I don't think too many roots got damaged. This is where we put the notice up. No roots were harmed in the making of this video. Well, actually they were. But not many. Could have been worse. Right, I'm happy with that. And what's happening from now on is repetition, so I'm going to leave it at that. You've seen one with roots that were allowed to grow too long. And the difference is that those roots have been put into the pot. Some people would have said leave them out, you know, they're aerial roots, leave them out. I want them to grow, and some of them may be lost as a consequence of burying them in media, but in a Holey clay pot the moisture loss is high. So it's not like they've gone in a plastic pot that could retain the moisture too long, and the change from the aerial root to going into media can be, well, it can lose your roots. A lot of people have that sort of trouble with the water culture. You know, when they buy a plant that's in media, especially if it's old and breaking down, and the roots are starting to go anyway, then you take them out and put it in water. That's the last thing it needs. Some take off like a rocket, and some lose their whole root system. But if you grow that way, that's what you've got to get used to. That's what you have to become an expert at, is that judgment call. And I don't know it. I don't do it, so I don't need to worry about it. I have other things to worry about instead. Right, so I'll get on and do the rest and finish them. And as far as the video is concerned, we'll leave it at that. And yeah, obviously we'll do some updates on these as and when. I think some of them might even be project plants, I can't remember. But you know, these are a set. They all got done together. But all for similar reasons, but not the same. Some of them are in this category. Just a total root loss as a consequence of me messing the treatment up. Others had outgrown their pot, like the Laelia anceps, and some were halfway between the two, like the Ivara nigara, the apple blossom, because that hadn't lost all of its roots. It still had some growing roots, but it had lost quite a few, so it was in between the two, and the media was old. So there we go. See you next time.